Is this on? Yes, it is. Oh, my goodness. Right. Let's see how far the lights go. Ooh, lots of lights. Great. Hi. That's us. That's me. How many of you call yourselves user experience designers? We'll pretend we didn't hear Alan Cooper, all right? So honestly, how many of you are user experience designers? Okay. How many of you had eggs for breakfast this morning? How many of you are user experience designers and had eggs for breakfast? Okay. And how many of you do not own an iPhone? Oh! Amazing. Amazing. It's always nice to know who your audience is. Right, and I know it says killer content or content that kills in the program, and that's in fact what we're going to talk about. However, it really is about the dogma, and we've heard about tenets and mantra and other things today, and this is going to fit in nicely with that. I'd first like to introduce you to Gus the cat. Now, Gus the cat likes cat food, and he eats whiskers. And in this particular case, it's lamb with peas. Now, the interesting thing about this is that nobody bothered to ask Gus the cat, who is in fact the user of this product. I'm the idiot who buys it. I'm the one who puts it in the bowl. But Gus is really the final arbiter as to whether this is a good product or not a good product. And the truth is, cats don't like vegetables. He pushes all the peas up to the side. Now, this is very, very simple usability testing that the Whiskers Corporation probably should have done. Because I don't buy this anymore because the cat won't eat it. We talk about user-centered design, and this is kind of a dangerous thing. There are a lot of good things, good parts of user-centered design. But what often happens is we say, here's a user. Oh, very nice. Oh, yes, okay, fine. Now we know who the user is, and we're never going to look at them again. We're going to go off and do our thing. This is kind of the cycle. And in fact, and I think it was Christian Rohrer, who was at eBay at the time, who came up with what he calls user-driven design, where the users are actually part of the process the entire way. And this is what's nice about Steve's approach to low-cost usability testing, because you keep the user in focus throughout the project instead of just going out and doing your analysis and then going home and right now we're going to design things. This is really not a good way to arrive at a good product. We talk a lot about best practice in our community. This is best practice is really the box that in fact we're all trying to think outside of. But it's an okay term. It was coined by Tom Peters back in the 80s. He wrote a book called In Search of Excellence, where he talked to leaders at IBM and Kodak and Xerox and other companies that were doing things well to find the commonalities, the best practices for these industries. Now, on the other side of the coin, and this isn't really true, but just for the time being, let's assume it's the other side of the coin, we have innovation. And one of the big English language dictionaries is the Merriam-Webster dictionary. This is their definition of innovation: the introduction of something new, a new idea, method, or device. Now, how many of you think that that's a good definition? No. Good. There are lots, by the way, these are not bullet points, these are bullet hole points. There are really lots of... How many of you work for a company that has innovation as one of your value words? Almost as many as iPhone users. Interesting. All right, so how many of you have innovation in people try to do it to differentiate their product, just to be different, or just to satisfy their ego. They say, I'm a designer. I'm going to do things differently. I want to introduce you to the Octo Auto. I didn't Photoshop this. This is a genuine product. This was an automobile from, I think, 1912 or thereabouts. And the idea was, it was going to run smoother on the bumpy roads. Because after all, the Pullman train cars, they had these double bogies, as they're called, and they ran very smoothly. So the Octo Auto, that should be a really great thing. They also claimed that you got twice as much mileage out of the tires and some other things that if you think about it for a moment, can't possibly be true. But anyway, the Octo Auto is one of these attempts during the early days of the automobile to differentiate a product. And what they didn't think about was, well, what do roads look like? Or did roads look like back in 1912? The one thing I can tell you with absolute certainty about the Octo Auto is it took twice as long to dig it out of the mud. This is not a very good product. And interestingly enough, if we look at the automobile industry, the first commercial automobile was in 1896. And for most of us, the first commercial websites were in 1996. And so here we are in 2010, and if we compare ourselves to a Model T Ford, you can see that there's a lot of way to go before our industry has really matured. Innovation works this way. You experiment, and then you come up with an invention. In this case, it's Marconi who invented radio telegraphy. Actually, he didn't. It was Tesla who invented radio telegraphy, but Marconi got the Nobel Prize. So now we're straight on that. The truth is, this is the real innovation. Does anyone recognize this photo? No one. Okay, if I put a date on it, will that help? The Titanic, absolutely, absolutely. And if I could figure out how to make that, well, anyway. Right, the Titanic. The innovation was that the Titanic was the first ship to send a distress call at sea via the Marconi apparatus. This is the original telegram, and that invention saved 802 souls that night, people who would have drowned in the middle of the Atlantic. That's what innovation is all about. There's only one reason to innovate, and that is to solve a problem. And the truth is that if you don't solve a problem, you're going to create a problem. You've got to think that there are technological consequences, there are political consequences, and there are social consequences of anything that you do. So much for innovation. This is kind of the life cycle. You start with innovation, you have invention, and then that inevitably leads to best practice. And if you stick around long enough and do the same thing, it just becomes habit. What you want to do is you want to start the next level of innovation building on what we're already working with in terms of best practice. So how do we actually think outside that box to solve a problem? That gives us the next level of best practice. Now, there's a very dangerous thing here, and that is fashion. Because that has a tendency to become old-fashioned. We heard this morning that from Bill Scott that you don't want to become a cliche. So whatever you're going to do, just do it by half. If you're doing things that are... what was your quote? Excuse me? The cheesiness factor. That was it, the cheesiness factor. So we've got best practice on the one side, and then we've got innovation on the other. And in fact, they don't really compete, but they build on each other. But for most of us, well, this is kind of what it looks like. And we're stuck in the middle of what are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to do best practice? Are we supposed to innovate? Are we going to do it for Jacob Nielsen, or are we going to do it for ourselves? Right. So that brings us to Dogma. A tenet. Ho, 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 ho. How many times have we heard that today? Tenet, mantra, whatever. It's a code. It's a set of rules. And rules are made to be broken. So please don't take this as more than it is. I live in Copenhagen, and I know Lars von Trier, who is a film director. And we worked together on Dancing in the Dark with Bjork some years ago. I did some voiceover work for him. And I was curious about this. The Dogma movies that were produced in Scandinavia and elsewhere during the 1990s were very interesting in that they were trying to rebel against the James Cameron, Titanic, Avatar types of things, where people had virtually unlimited funds, but were not necessarily producing unlimited art. So Lars von Trier and Thomas Vinterberg wrote the Vow of Chastity, 10 Dogma rules. And shooting must be done on location. Props and sets must not be brought in. If you need a prop, you have to go to where the prop is. It's all that kind of thing. So you got a lot of handheld camera and that kind of thing. And I asked Lars about this. Well, so how did it work out, and why hasn't it become more successful? He said, because we screwed up. We didn't really think to keep it generic. So we've got things like number 9, the film format must be Academy 35 millimeter. So a year later, we were doing things on computers. So that dates it. And so I thought, well, this is what we've got the experts telling us. And these are all things that we know are old-fashioned. They don't make sense anymore. This is from the Canary Islands. It's in a little island called La Palma. This is in the capital city of Santa Cruz. And the city council there has decided that they want to make the town accessible. So there are more wheelchair ramps in this town than any other city I've ever been in my entire life. Now let me just show you the rest of the picture. Okay, so good intentions gone wrong. But the picture is interesting because it contains the key elements of what we're trying to work with. We have people, and we have processes, and we have technologies that are going to connect these things. But we've got to make sure that there's a flow. And so I started thinking, well, gosh, wouldn't it be interesting if you could create a set of best practices that were not related to technology? After all, our industry is moving pretty fast. And so I spent a couple of years working out what I called the web dogma. And in 2006, I pinned a typewritten list up on a bulletin board at a conference, very much like this. And suddenly, to my surprise, people started to sign it. That's amazing. And then they started to translate it, and it got into the blogosphere. I thought, wow, that's just really neat. And a lot of companies now use this as sort of their design philosophy. And it's even in Portuguese. Well, Brazilian Portuguese. So, anyway, it's an interesting idea. See, all you Mac users, you say that your computers have personality. I have a PC. It has an attitude. This is the difference between anything that comes from Apple and anything that comes from Microsoft. Right, so moving on. So the first dogma rules, there are 10 of them. The first one is the one that's long. Anything that exists only to satisfy the internal politics of the site owner must be eliminated. Now, I'm talking about internal politics. This is a political site for the American Papists. It's for American Catholics. This is a site that is devoted to opinion and to politics. That's completely all right. It's the internal stuff I'm talking about. And we all know this. This is a company, FL Schmidt. They're a very large producer of cement factories. Who knew? And this is their website, and of course they have the obligatory organizational chart, because we all know that when we go to a website we want to see the org chart. And if you click up here, you get the company profile with the structure and the history and blah, blah. Lots of nice things. This is the kind of stuff that information architects love. Ooh, we've really uncovered all the corners of this industry. The interesting thing was that for years, if you clicked on any of this, this is the page you got. The page was visited so infrequently that they had forgotten that they never actually wrote any of this crap. Okay, so there you go. How many Norwegians are in the audience? Okay, I can take care of you guys. It's the ones up. I got a lot of Norwegian sites in this. It's not because the Norwegian sites are bad. They just happen to be good examples that I happen to find because the Danish sites were just too appalling for words. Jeg er virkelig gerne sige undskyld til jer. Altså, I må ikke tage det personligt. This is the IBM site, and of course we all love the IBM site because it gives us so many good examples of how not to do things. In this case, we're one click off the main page, and over here it says Ansatskatalog, job hos IBM, and IBM or Lenovo. And this was just after the Lenovo merger. So what it's saying is, this is these job offerings, this is working for IBM, and then IBM and Lenovo. He said, like, this is a fairly top-tier page? Well, let's click on that. Oh, by the way, yeah, this design. If you see, this is design du jour. It's got a bunch of tabs at the top, big stupid picture, and some things you can click on underneath. These are some Danish websites. We've got the tabs at the top, big stupid pictures, and things you can click on underneath. And next, and you've got tabs at the top, and it sort of goes on and on. Because that's, of course, the way we design sites. This is the royal family of Denmark, and in fact, because they're appealing to an older demographic, I think you can actually make a good argument for putting the picture of our queen on the front, because, oh, well, look, it's our queen. We came to the right site. So that's very nice. Now, if any of you are paying really expensive designers to do this kind of stuff, let me give you a tip. You can go to Dotster and you can download this stuff for about 50 euros a pop, with Flash and with picture rights. I bought these skins just to get the pictures. It's cheaper than going to Tony Stone. And in terms of usability, they work pretty well. Right, okay, so back to IBM. So we click on IBM and Lenovo, and we get this press release where Lenovo is actually first mentioned down here. And you learn that there's been a merger. Now let's look at the contextual navigation, because this is where you can see who's actually doing the talking here. Before you visit Lenovo's website, you should read the terms and conditions of the IBM site. More about Lenovo and the terms and conditions of the Lenovo website. This is internal politics. This is the people in legal saying, well, we have to do this. We can't send people to a site if we don't make sure that, we've crossed the T's and dotted the I's. A really bad idea. So that's internal politics. If we try to click on some of the other stuff, then you can see the Americans rear their ugly head. If we click on working for IBM, then we get into this flash hell that takes forever to go through. And then search for your country. So if you go there, there's actually a drop-down for Norway. And if you click on that, then you finally get to a page, half in English and half in Norwegian, that tells that they actually have some jobs in Norway. And this is because the Americans say, well, no, we have all this flash that we paid a whole lot of money for. So before anybody goes and looks for a job, they have to be forced to see the flash. And this is how we measure return on investment in our company. Right. Okay, so politics. Not a good thing. There's also, not the X factor, but the sex factor. How many of you work at advertising agencies? Okay. This is a sexist remark, so you're going to have to excuse me. It's completely politically incorrect. But there are always male art directors who want to go to bed with an attractive model. And so the idea is to get this girl a job. And this is a website, and I've actually knocked out this is a real company. The only thing I photoshopped was to get rid of the logo, because I think this is so embarrassing. We've got this broad who apparently can type while holding a pen, her feet on the table, and drinking a cup of coffee. So the sex factor is also internal politics. Moving on. Anything that exists only to satisfy the ego of the designer must be eliminated. This is a really weird site. I think Flanders had it as one of the world's worst websites. Now look at this. This is really great, because I have to find my cursor. Yes, there it is. Because they've got this stock photo that they bought, and then they've got some navigation here, and it's amazing how many times they say, hello, darlings, hi, darlings, hello, darlings. So, like, really weird. But look at what happens. If you'll notice, there's a very long scroll bar. This is fascinating. So, okay, go up, and we'll start scrolling down. Oh, yes, come on, scroll. Lovely, lovely. And what do we say? Oh, blue van and the stock. Oh, the navigation came back, and the stock photo and the navigation. Is this some secret SEO thing that I don't know about? Incredible. This is for a Danish company that I work for. They're actually probably one of Scandinavia's best business-to-business advertising agencies, and probably the worst in terms of designing websites. I've been fighting with their art director, who's an incredibly talented man, for years to get rid of the splash screens. So this is what happens. I'm going to go up, I'm going to click on Danish, and that's a page that looks reasonable enough. Let's go up and click on blue. Oh, yes. Oh, business-to-business communications don't have to be boring. And then you get to another page, and you click on something, and then there's some content. Yeah, click on something. All right, we'll click on brains. Ah, another one. Oh, not all ideas are equally good. Okay. Right, so go to tools. Okay, rational products. Take products. It goes on and on and on. How many times do you have to skip an intro in one website? I mean, this has got to be a world record. And you know what happens if you go back to the ones we've already seen? You still have to repeat it. Crazy. This is IKEA. IKEA, or I guess you call it IKEA in the rest of the world. Do you think this has something to do with Apple? This is my iPad, and this goes into my iPad. Never mind. For a while, IKEA had something that they called democratic design. And this was sort of low-cost, well-designed furniture. Now, they also have a very expensive, badly designed website that goes with it. And it's very difficult to find. It used to be on the Spanish site. And the only place I could find it now was in the Norwegian site. And since I took this, it's actually disappeared. But let's see if it's going to work. Yep. So we're going to scroll down to the bottom, and they hid democratic design all the way down there because they know that it's shit. Okay? So we click on this, and suddenly, and there's sound to go with it. Oh, and then we have to click on the thing. Yes, and he hops off. Come on, click, click, click. Hop, 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 hop. And then you have all these disembodied heads of designers running around. And so, click on her. Come on, click on her. Yes? And now we know that Aileen Johansson is a designer at IKEA. This is stuff that is there to satisfy the ego of the designer. And trust me, it's nothing that interests anybody except the designer. Okay? Not a good way to go. So moving on, anything that's irrelevant within the context of the page should be eliminated. This is an older site for CM Pros, and it was actually designed by a rocket scientist, an aerophysics PhD from Harvard University. Okay, this is for content management professionals. And the problem with content management professionals is that they love content. They don't really care what it is as long as there's lots of it. So here I am, several clicks into the website, and I'm going to read about information architecture. And what do we have here? Technology. What are the flashing blue rectangles? Haven't seen them. Visible only when you've logged onto our intranet. Rectangles indicate that members with edit privileges can edit content elements on these pages. See how to edit. Wait a minute. I'm nowhere near the intranet. You would assume that if I had edit privileges, they would have told me earlier. This is silly. And if that isn't enough, I can also buy a t-shirt. This is the kind of stuff that, if you eliminate the irrelevant things, the things that are important come into focus. It's a good rule of design. Words fail me. This is wine.com. This is probably my least favorite site in the entire world. And I'll show you why a little later. Right now we're in on a page for the Mountain Veeder winery, and we can print seller notes. So if we click on that, this is what we get when we look on the page. And suddenly, we have collaborative filtration. Customers who bought this also bought a really shitty California champagne. Why would I want that on my seller notes? Seller notes is something I print out and I put it next to the bottle so that when I drink it, then I remember what I'm supposed to have drunk that 2 years ago. In fact, the stuff that I'm interested in is way down at the bottom, below the fold. I mean, you can't even just click through this site and get the information you need. You have to do a lot of work to get things out of it. So, not a good idea. Things that are irrelevant. Most of what was on the Mount Veeder site was, in fact, irrelevant in the context of seller notes. 4, moving onward and upward. Any feature or technique that reduces the visitor's ability to navigate freely must be eliminated. We spend so much time trying to figure out how to disable the back button or to do other things. There are all kinds of places you can go online to figure out, just to put things in what looks like a pop-up window. And the truth is that users don't like it very much. Let's not rob them of the ability to navigate. And if they don't want to stay on our site, then let's let them go someplace else without reading your terms of conditions or anything else. This is another twist on this. This is actually an ergonomic problem. I sent my wife some flowers. And it says, print and save this receipt. We've also sent a copy to your email address. And this is my order number, and this is the IP address. This is the important area, okay? This is what I need to save for my record. So if the flowers don't come, and she said, I never got flowers. Then I can say, well, I've got proof. I bought them. Well, don't go away. Let's analyze this. So I want to print this. This is the screen. There's my cursor. And there's the print button. Okay? So the task now is to move that to there and click. Okay? Which we will do now. Okay, right. So up you go. Click, click, click. Oh. Oh. Okay, sneak around it. Go down, and then up. If you print it out, you get this big wide area where all the relevant information is. It's a silly thing to do. So you don't want to reduce people's navigational ability, and that's pretty much what this is doing. We're halfway done. Any interactive object that isn't perceived as being an interactive object isn't interactive. That's basically it. This is existentialism. This is trees falling in the forest. Do they make a noise? Well, in terms of online, no, they don't make a noise. This is for a photographer. It took me 27 clicks to find out that he was based in Texas. All right, I could have been lucky and hit the right postcard, and you can move this all around. And the people who designed this site also did Dixie Chicks, so it's been blogged to death, and he gets like 100,000 unique visitors a month. And he's very mad at me because I use this as an example of what I think is not really good design. This is a fellow, Mark Hurst, in New York, pointed this out to me. This is from Samsung. We may send information on offers and promotion in conjunction with our business partners. Please check this box if you do not want to receive this. Yes, keep me informed of the latest news on Samsung products, special offers with. Okay, so what's going to happen when I click that box? In Samsung's defense, they did redesign it. Sign up for the latest news. Yes, this is our privacy policy. A much better redesign. It's not perfect, but it's good. This is a very early site. You can see it's one of those frames-based sites. I really had to go back to the Wayback Machine to find it. This is a Danish site for the Italian coffee manufacturer, Eli. And this was back when advertising agencies thought that, right, no words on the web, it's all going to be icons. Because we got paid a lot for designing icons. So we've got, well, I guess that's what a house was. That is, in fact, an espresso maker, if you know Eli's products. Excuse me. It's actually prescription. And it was only when my wife brought it in this morning, he said, you realize this is filled with opium and alcohol? Good Lord. I'll have some more of that, actually. Right. So we have all these icons. Anybody want to guess what that is? A light switch, exactly. It is a Danish light switch. Anybody want to hazard a guess as to what will happen when I click on that icon?
Change the colors.
What?
Change the colors.
Change the power? No, I'll tell you what. Runa, where are you? All right, Runa. What do you call a light switch in Danish? Kontakt. Kontakt. Okay, so not exactly a good thing. And happily, of course, we don't do these kinds of things anymore, do we? No software apart from the browser should be necessary to make things work correctly. This is basically a shot at all the players that you need to download and Adobe PDF Reader and all this kind of thing. It just shouldn't be necessary for people to jump through all kinds of hoops to use your site. Now, things have gotten easier the last couple of years, and certainly YouTube has helped because now we are seeing video on sites without all of this malarkey. But look, this is the BBC, for goodness sakes. And that's a pretty savvy organization. Museum of Modern Art, they had all kinds of requirements. And this is really weird. It took me a long time to figure out why I couldn't use any of these videos. It's because black on dark gray, that's a really good design decision, tells me that I need QuickTime in order to see them. So these are stumbling blocks. And these will go out of fashion. Some of them are already out of fashion. The stuff that we're working with today, that's going to go out of fashion too. My advice, don't use it. This is related. Content should be readable. It should be dynamic. You should be able to see it. Then you should be able to print it, and finally you should be able to download it. And I'm sorry, never in a fairly long career has anybody ever told me, gosh, I wish there were more PDFs on that site. It hasn't happened. Now, I know that there are a lot of people that say, well, do you see how many people download our PDFs? They must be very popular. I said, no, people are downloading your PDFs because you can't get the information anywhere else. If people don't have a choice, then they're going to download the PDF. But very rarely do people actually want a PDF. Frontera, this is an old site. Download the file. The complete annual report is a PDF, and it's a fairly large download. This is under shareholder information and investor relations. They have no dynamic data whatsoever. This design doesn't even say what the company does. This is the redesign. All right, now they tell you how big it is, but an interim report and a picture of a girl eating strawberries and cream. This is not really very useful. It would help a lot to have financial highlights. Oh, and by the way, now we can at least see that they have something to do with dairy products. So that's good. I guess they build mechanical cows or something. And deliver the milk as PDF. This is something that I am ashamed to say I actually wrote many years ago. This is a cardiac electrode. And if you know anything about cardiac testing, there are stress tests where you're up on a bicycle and you're sweating, so you need a big adhesive area and fairly few electrodes to make the test work. But you need a lot of adhesive so you don't sweat it off. And then there's Holter testing, and then there's sleep testing, and so on and so forth. And sometimes, there may be 12 or 14 electrodes on. So the size is important, depending on what kind of application you're going to use it for. And so what does it say up there? The very large ambu blue sensor, like very large. Just tell me how big it is. Well, originally, this was part of a data sheet. And the data sheet is now here as a download. And there it said it's 38 millimeters, and it had a whole half an A4 page full of technical details. But they got cut out. So that's not good. You have to watch out with granularity. There are all kinds of things that can go wrong when you start cutting and pasting from different parts of a brochure. You've got to make sure that things stick together, things that are necessary. This is one of my absolute favorites. How many of you have been fighting with design guides at one point or another? Quite a few. It doesn't get any easier if the design guides were done by an advertising agency. Because the advertising agencies think in terms of concept as being look and feel, and we know that a concept online is more a question of functionality. It's what the site can do. This is a site for a company that's doing very well, They actually made money on the stock market yesterday when everybody else went down. It's called Novozymes. Does anyone want to tell me what Novozymes does? You probably can't read this. It's a Rethink Tomorrow. So, like, we're all cool with what they do? Good, good. That's the first screen. So let's say that we are curious and we click on products and solutions. Then we get to, a big useless picture and some things you can click on. Oh, and they rediscovered left-hand navigation. We are, in fact, on products and solutions. All right, so we'll click on biologicals. We still haven't figured out what this company does. It's the world leader in bioinnovation. Oh, products. We can click on products again. We'll do that. Yeah. Oh, and now drop-downs. According to, we'll take agriculture. Biofertility. Okay, all you usability types. And Steve and Jared, don't say anything. What is the glaring usability error on this page? If I put it in browser Chrome, would that help? What?
Track. Too much level?
Well, it's a magazine layout. They're asking me to start reading there, and then I can scroll back, and then I can start reading there. This is what happens when you have print designers doing websites. And we're 7 clicks into the site before we actually get some product information. This is a designer dictating things that the designer should not dictate. It's the style guide. In this case, they paid, I think, something in the neighborhood of 150,000 euros to a company in England to put together this design guide, which covers a lot of print, and it does great stuff, but it's impossible in terms of the web. But they don't care. So we got a website, and it's pretty, and so we're happy. It's not part of the business case. It's not earning them any money. It's not doing anything very positive in terms of image. But hey, we've got a website. Going to get back to wine.com. Carolyn, where are you? Carolyn, thank you. Just wanted to find out, because you're going to throw things at me. I just want to know where they're going to come from. Sit down, dear. No visitor must be forced to register or surrender personal data unless the site owner is unable to provide a service or complete a transaction without it. This is, in fact, an EU law. Thank you. Thank you. Most people don't know that. There are an awful lot of sites within the EU that are simply illegal. The Americans, who have absolutely no fucking clue as to what privacy is, apparently. Let me show you wine.com. This is what the page looks like when you go to wine.com. Actually, no. This is not what the page looks like. Because what you get is this. I couldn't game it. I tried everything in the world. So my mother lives in Florida, so I typed in FL, which is the abbreviation for Florida, and I got this. Well, we currently ship to most locations in Florida. However, due to state and local regulations, there are certain areas to which we are unable to deliver. So give us your zip code. So I type in a zip code. And then, by way of apology, they say, well, because wine availability and pricing may vary from state to state due to the way interstate commerce laws influence our buying patterns. I really don't care how your logistics work. This just isn't my concern. We have found that the select state layover screen, while a little intrusive... I've been on this site for 5 minutes and I already hate the company. I don't want to buy their wine. I'm mad at them. All right, so we're back to this page, remember? So, what's it going to cost to send it to me? That's why people abandon shopping carts online. It's the only way you can find out what the shipping costs are. You have to click through a whole shopping cart to find out what it's going to be. And yet, here's a company that actually already knows within about 2 kilometers where I live. So they don't need to give me any more information at this point, or I don't need to give them any more information. But what the hell, I'm playing the game, so let's go for it. Okay, yeah, well, I'm going to register and create an account. This is so far so good. Now, they have my zip code. They have everything they need. Yes, I am over 21. Now tell me what it's going to cost. No. We want to know your MasterCard number. Oh, and we want a shipping address. Oh, and I can send a gift note to myself. And finally, after all this malarkey, I get to confirm order. Standard, estimated arrival 7 business days. Anybody want to tell me what 7 business days is? It's like a week and a half. And it's going to cost $9.95. But apparently they think I'm really dumb because I could buy priority, estimated arrival 7 business days, for an extra $10. Oh, they're clever, these Yanks. Express, estimated arrival 6 business days, add $15. Anyway, it turns out that I can buy this stuff locally in Miami for $25 a bottle. So I'd say cancel order, and I get a 404 error. Now, this is the last one, and it's really the most important one, and it is break any of these rules before you do something really dumb, okay? Rules are there to be broken. This is absolutely critical, and this is stolen from George Orwell's Rules for Writers. There are 5 really, really good tips, and if you are writers, you should check them out on the internet. You'll find them lots of places. He wrote Animal Farm in 1984. He's the one who coined the word Big Brother. Break the rules. That's absolutely imperative. And finally, I just want to leave you with a site, wordsatplay.com. I think it's still up. I'm not going to tell you how it works, but it's lovely because it doesn't break any of the rules, and yet it doesn't explain itself, but it's thoroughly enjoyable. Really good stuff. And on that happy note, I'd like to tell you, if we don't demand better websites, we're never going to get them. But more importantly, we're not here just to prevent the bad things from happening, but to make wonderful things happen. That's our job. Thank you very much. Timing-wise, should I take some questions, or do you want me to get the hell out of here? What? Oh, right, yeah, so I spent too long, so I'm in the hall, and grab me, and I'll gladly answer any questions you have. Thank you very much.